Howdy y'all, Fuzzy Biker here. We are just west of Ames a little bit. We're on the Hot Rod Himalayan right here. Royal Enfield Himalayan 452, just having a ball out there. Kind of want to talk about a little phenomena that's been going on. I've seen this directly at Baxter Cycle, and I've heard about it from a couple other dealers. People are coming in with their big, expensive, fancy ADV bikes, and they are trading them in for motorcycles like this one, which is a wonderful ADV bike, the Royal Enfield Himalayan. I've proven that already with this one. I've got about 9,600 miles on it. I've had it, I think it's 5 weeks today, 9,700 miles. Why is that happening? I think there's a couple reasons, and I think it's, I think the set of people that are doing it are people that went out and had bought big fancy ADVs. They're beautiful bikes, they're wonderful machines. And then what they found was they didn't want to get them dirty. They were afraid of damaging them. They found out they were very heavy, and you know, so they the bikes ended up sitting in the garage or never making it off-road, or not very far off-road anyway. I've got kind of a list of things here that I kind of went through on it, and the cost per mile on a motorcycle like this, you know, this is about a third of the price, a third to a fourth of the price of a, well, high of a fancy ADV. The advantage that this Himalayan has over the old Himalayan was that the old Himalayan could not do highway speeds very well. It topped out at about 80 miles an hour, and it did not like to go over 65 for very long. This bike will go, I took this on a 1,000-mile day ride, literally 1,030 miles. I went up to North Dakota and back. It was all interstate except for the 6 miles to get to the interstate and 6 miles to get back. And the bike just performed admirably. The speeds were, I held it to 80, 85 miles an hour, and I got about in the low 40s for mileage. So this bike will do the long ride. I've also had this down to Alabama, Arkansas. I've gone through Kansas City. I took this through St. Louis, so it will do the long ride without any problems. It's a minimalist motorcycle. It's just enough motorcycle to do the main big roads, everything you need. It's just enough motorcycle to do everything you need without all the extras that weigh them down or make them delicate or make them fragile, you know, without all the extra things that make them very expensive. You know, they've got, it's just what you need. They weigh the right amount. They get just enough amount of power, you know. These are generally, this one's about 430 pounds, 195 kilograms. Most ADVs are well over 500 pounds or in the high 400s. Why does that matter? Well, I did a river crossing in Colorado. We did a couple of them, and we had to push the bikes across, walk them over on their own power on one of the crossings, and took a lot of physical energy. And with a big, heavy, tall bike, ADV bike, that's a lot of work. With this bike, it was still a lot of work, but the center of gravity is so much lower on this, way down lower, and the push point, you push, you're leaning down instead of reaching up. That makes pushing a bike much easier. The other thing about a minimalist motorcycle is there's just less to break. You know, there's less electronic doodads, there's less electronic shocks or things like that, you know, that are susceptible to damage. So, you know, it's got just what you need, not really much more. It's comfortable, it's versatile, it'll ride the rough stuff. On top of that, it's cheaper to buy, it's cheaper to maintain. You know, maintenance on a bike like this, I did the first valve adjustment on myself. It took me an hour to take the tank off and get to the valves, which are down here. Did the check, and then it took me another hour to get it back together, and that was the first time doing it, you know, so very easy to do. Other things that about this bike, because it's a 40 horsepower bike, there's no traction control to worry about, there's no you know, things like that. So what's the big deal about traction control? Modern motorcycles are so powerful anymore that a 100 horsepower motorcycle, you really need traction control. Now, if you take a 100 horsepower motorcycle out on gravel, you know, that's, you know, can you really use 100 horsepower? Well, that's why they have traction control. That makes the power more manageable and things like that. Well, it's a system that is susceptible to damage, needs software updates, needs all those kind of things. This does not have that. This does have a computer. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes, maybe a little smaller. It does have fly-by-wire throttle. It does have those kind of things. You know, it's tuned, it's all that neat stuff, but it doesn't have all those delicate systems. The other thing about big fancy ADV bikes are the brakes. Now, most ADV bikes are set up with great street brakes, you know, dual disc on the front, Stylemas, Brembos, you know, whatever the magic words are, and they are fabulous. They're great street bikes, but on the gravel, those brakes become very touchy and sensitive. Here again, you need systems that you use to manage those to make them work better on the gravel. Now that's kind of brings me to another thing. The big secret about ADV bikes that people who ride a lot know is that ADV bikes make great street bikes, and the reason they do that is they got long suspensions to soak up bumps. They are comfortable. They usually have a good seating position. Most bikes have excellent weather protection. This has very minimalist weather protection, and that's something I will give to the big fancy ADVs. They all have I shouldn't say it like that. I love the big fancy ADV bikes. They're beautiful things, but they do usually have better weather protection than a motorcycle like this would have. And on this motorcycle, you're dependent on wearing gear like this Royal Enfield Explorer jacket that I've got on, or with that beautiful showy Neotech 2 helmet that I have, and always good clothes. You should always wear gear anyway. Good gear that is comfortable to wear, that makes the ride better, that provides safety, but and weather protection. So here, looking at my list of other things to talk about, I just got this low seat height. A lot of big ADVs have very tall seats, so they have a higher center of gravity, and they have a taller seat. Now you're going to say, well, this has a tall seat. It's 32 1/4 in the high precision. That's 845 millimeters. In the low position, it's 32 1/2. That's 825 millimeters. Yeah, that's true. But look how narrow, these are my Noru gloves. Look how narrow that seat is. And I think you really shouldn't even talk about seat height until you, on this bike, until after you sit on it. Go to the dealer, sit on it, and then ask them about the seat height. Because the seat on this, you really feel like you're down low, you know. It's a much better thing than you can imagine. So you've got the low seat height, you're able to reach the ground well, you got the very low center of gravity, you got a very good handling motorcycle, you got a 21-inch tire, you got loads of suspension. You know, there's just all kinds of benefits to this kind of a motorcycle. I would say the big advantage of the larger ADVs, you have more luxury for sure. In other words, heated grips, heated seats, things like that that are not offered on this bike. You can get heated grips as an aftermarket thing. They are fancier. They have fancy paint jobs. They're, you know, they have all the hi-fi electronics. You know, they are like buying a. This is like buying a good old stock four-wheel drive Chevy or Ford, whichever your preference is. And, you know, 2 doors, the rubber mats, you know, none of the luxury stuff. The big ADVs are like buying the same truck with the leather interior and the fancy stereo and the, you know, all the gizmos and doodads that make it just a luxury vehicle. So this is the get her done motorcycle. Go out and have fun. Treat it like you want to. And so I would say the fancier ones are for the people that probably don't want to ride the dirt really. They just want the look of the truck. You know, the guy that he wants to look like a construction worker gets the big fancy truck, but yet it's got all the bells and whistles. That's kind of how I see the big fancy ADVs. This is more like the, hey, I really want to go out and ride my bike. So I had a couple friends call me, and one friend actually traded in his big fancy ADV. He'd had it for a couple of years, and what they wanted to know was, would it do the job? Would it do the highway miles? Yes, this will do the highway miles. I have driven this to Colorado several times, Alabama, you know, all that. Then the next thing is, will it do the rough? Well, I've had this on Colorado BDRs and little bits of Wyoming and all over Utah and you know, parts of Utah. And you know, next weekend I'm thinking of this week I'm thinking of going to BDR in either South Dakota, or I might go down to Kansas. Next week we're going to go to Colorado unless the snow comes. So yeah, it's a very capable machine, and it will do all those things. It will get the job done. So a lot less price, a lot of capability, all the capability of any ADV out there, honestly. Less delicate, lighter, easy to maneuver, easy to take into the rough stuff. And I think that's why people are doing it. Oh, and by the way, it does water really well. And one of the reasons it does that is the air intake is up here somewhere. So I did a river crossing in this where the water was knee high. So right there, right about here. Well, the air intake's way up here, you know, so didn't have any of that problem. One last thing I have on my list is some of the big ADV brands are known to be finicky. In other words, they're known to have certain kinds of problems that arise, and you'll even, you know, you'll talk to the dealers. I don't want to mention brands, but you know, we were out in the middle of nowhere, and there were a couple of guys in their ADVs, and they had the seat off the one. It was that special color, and you know, oh, one of those. Imagine that one out here in the middle of nowhere with the seat off, and everybody laughed, and you know, just kind of expected, you know. So some of these bikes are very fragile. This is not a fragile bike. This, you know, Royal Enfield is a maker of machines that will do the job. You know, this is a bike called the Himalayan, and there's a road up there in India where they take these. It's like, I can't remember if it was 17,000 or 19,000. I've had this one over 12,000 feet, so I'm very proud of this bike. I think it's a really good machine. I've just had great luck with it. And as far as ADVs go, why are people trading in their big fancy ones for this? Again, I think it's the people that bought the fancy ones. They wanted actually to take them out. They got the bikes. They're just too nice to take out. And so they, you know, too expensive, too nice. I actually had a friend, we were climbing a rock hill, and he stopped, turned around, went back. You know, I finished the job on my Himalayan, on my 411 Himalayan, but you know, so that's I think what's going on. You know, they want a bike that is simpler, less expensive, just as capable or even more capable. I think the price is actually one of the biggest features when it comes to taking the bike off-road, because of the price is a third or a fourth of what a big one costs, and because the bike is just as capable, you are willing to take it out there because you have less risk, you know, just a lot less risk. With my old Himalayan, I used to joke, if I ever got stuck out in the middle of nowhere, I took that thing everywhere. If I ever got stuck out in the middle of nowhere, you know, I'd tie a chain to it and drag it home if I had to. I rode that bike. That was the air-cooled version. I rode that 31,000 miles in 3 years. I've got 9,600 miles on this one already. A friend of mine was asking me, he says, you know, you're gonna have 30,000 miles on this before spring. I think with that new motor, I don't think that's an issue. I think it's going to be okay. And even if it is an issue, I'll rebuild it or I'll trade it off and get a different one. You know, but I do not believe it's going to be an issue. This motor is tough as nails from what I can see. It's a great bike. Now, if y'all are interested in a motorcycle like this, new or used Royal Enfield, Triumph, classic British bike of any type, need parts, accessories, thingamajigs, doodads, gear of any type, like this wonderful jacket, gloves, helmets, you know, you name it, boots, socks, underwear, get yourself over to Baxter Cycle in the mighty Minneapolis of Marnew, Iowa, or go to baxtercycle.com. They ship motorcycles almost everywhere, by the way. Give them a call if you're in the market for one. Make sure you tell them Fuzzy Biker sent you. Now, it's a beautiful day here, and I'm at a beautiful park. And I think I'm going to go for a bike ride. Y'all do the same if you can. Life is good, my friends. Get off the couch. Wahoo! Yippee-yi-yay! Yippee-yi-yo! Down the road we go. Beautiful, beautiful machine.